Welcome to the Land, your bet sports betting show. 2 Monday Night Football games in Week 7, and we are looking at Chargers in Arizona taking on the Cardinals for this one. Also have a separate episode up with the Ravens and the Bucks. Make sure you check out all those best bets and player props in there. Going to be running 2 giveaways, one in this video, one in the other one. And what they are, give me the first 2 touchdown scores. So first one for each team. First touchdown score for the Chargers, first touchdown score for the Cardinals. I want each of them. You get it exactly right. Throw you in the running to win $50 in each video. So go ahead and get that. If that all sounds good to you guys, let's get right into it. Looking at the Chargers offense, we know that they love to run the ball. That's why you see them 29th in passing yards, but they haven't really passed the ball very much. They have the 3rd highest run to pass ratio. So very few passing attempts for Justin Herbert this season. And they love to just run down the clock, let their defense stay rested. They run the slowest offense in the league, fewest plays per second. And their rush yards are good because their offensive line is that good. They're 7th in adjusted yards before contact. So that 22nd in rush EPA, I actually think the way that the offensive line is played is a little bit better than that. They're just very happy to go slowly and very methodically. Against the Cardinals defense, that is going to be the dream of Jim Harbaugh, head coach and the guy calling the plays for this Chargers team. He loves to run the ball against a team that is bad at stopping the run and has an offense on the other side that gives you a pause and makes you a little bit worried that Kyler Murray is basically a walking explosive play. So it's better to keep the ball out of his hands. So with the way that this Cardinals defense is terrible against the run, terrible against the pass, I don't know which one they're worse against, to be honest, but they're both available for you. So it can be tough to decide how the other team is going to score on you. Are they going to try to pass? Are they going to try to run? Both are available. For the Chargers, definitely looking for them to be running a lot in this game. As we get into these props for the Chargers, do want to remind you, if you want every bet that I'm making, especially as NBA season starts to heat up this week, head over to wap.com. Link is in the description of the video, and we've got 50% off going for the first month. If you do want to use OCT-SALE to get that code in, get yourself a nice little discount. Let's get into Justin Herbert. I think we're fading the pass attempts, but to be honest, I would still not even be fading the passing yards, even at under 200. Explosive plays are going to be available for him. I will say Quentin Johnson is looking doubtful, like he's not going to play. That's been his number 1 wide receiver. Ladd McConkey should step in there just fine, and Joshua Palmer, whatever he's worth, is available. That said, once again, dream matchup for Jim Harbaugh. Arizona allows the 4th fewest pass attempts against them, and I say allow, but really it's just the other team choosing to run on them. The 4th most rush attempts against this team. So it all adds up that you don't want to have the ball in Kyler Murray's hands if you can avoid it. The best way to do that is to run it against a terrible rush defense and not force your quarterback to have to do too much. Again, you see the run to pass stuff here for the Chargers, 3rd highest run to pass ratio. I think the pass attempts are going to be very low in this game, very few possessions. Chargers should control the clock. Obviously, that leads you to a dream matchup for J.K. Dobbins as well, who is officially the lead back without question because Gus Edwards is now on IR. The backup is going to be a gentleman by the name of Kimani Vidal, and while he's not necessarily known yet, I do think he might take a little bit of the rush attempts for J.K. Dobbins. I think we're looking at close to 30, 35 rush attempts for the Chargers in this game. So I still say 17.5 for J.K. Dobbins is probably a fair number. I would lean to the under. I wouldn't be going over it, but I'm not touching that number. I think the yards are still probably good for him, but I do think Kimani Vidal will be in there for a bit more than you might realize. And that's why I think Vidal's good for a long shot anytime touchdown play. You can do it regular. It's about plus 330 for him to get into the end zone on FanDuel and a couple other places. But this is going to be the RB2 moving forward, who's going to get some stuff inside the 20s and definitely will be used as a goal line back, as a really good bruiser out of Troy, where he never fumbled. By the way, Dieter taught us that in the previous episode. And really, you're going to look at him as an awesome sort of change of pace back versus J.K. Dobbins, coming in and being the bruiser. A lot of that's going to probably be in the second half. So I also think a really good play here is plus 600 for him to specifically get a second half touchdown. That's what we saw in this last game where he finally got in. Gus Edwards was not used at all and then shelved for the season. And Vidal comes in the second half. Once again, change your pace back, does a really nice job with his yards per carry and gets that goal line carry that he's put away for a touchdown. I think that's going to be what we see again in this one. I don't really love any of the Chargers receivers. None of them should really give you that much reason to believe in them just yet. But the rookie Ladd McConkey is rising slowly. He's been a little bit hurt at the beginning of the season. Herbert was hurt as well when he injured his ankle rather, and was definitely gimpy and had to come out for a few plays in one of these games. So McConkey, since he's actually had Justin Herbert behind center throwing to him, has had some pretty good numbers, especially in the last 3 weeks. As Herbert's gotten healthy and this pass game has gotten better, 6 receptions, 7 receptions, 8 receptions, or excuse me, targets, 6 targets, 7 targets, 8 targets. His numbers aren't quite there yet with the receptions, and they're really not there with the yards either. He's only gone over his receiving prop once, but it's a higher receiving prop because Quentin Johnson is out. That makes him the de facto number 1 receiver for Justin Herbert. He's got a very low ADOT. The receptions are at a pretty high number. I'm not going to be playing any overs for receiving against the Chargers. Like I said, I think you're going to see way more run plays for this team than pass plays. But if you were going to go for an over, it would be Ladd McConkey. Other side of the ball, looking at this Arizona offense, it's been kind of rough, to be honest. Now, they're 24th in pass yards. Underlying metrics say they should be better, 15th in pass EPA. Really good in overall rushing because they have the second best running quarterback in the league, we'll say, after Lamar, somewhere in there. 7th in rush yards with his added help, but 19th in rush EPA. This offensive line for the Cardinals is good, though. It's interestingly good, honestly. It's in terms of adjusted yards before contact, it's 3rd best, and they give up the 7th best pressure percentage on Kyler Murray. So they're really holding strong in both the pass rushing and the pass blocking and the run blocking. That said, this Chargers defense is filthy. 8th in passing yards allowed, 4th in pass EPA, 6th in rush yards allowed, 1st in rush EPA. They're just nasty, man. I mean, they're 10th in adjusted yards before contact. Interestingly, they're not getting that much pressure on the quarterback, but they're not blitzing very much. And Joey Bosa is probably not going to be playing in this one. So that is something to be worried about. Obviously, he's their best pass rusher. But I will say that does lead me to feel a little bit better about Kyler Murray not going over in rushing yards, mostly because of the fact that the edge is not going to necessarily be Joey Bosa running around and getting to him, forcing him out of the pocket. There really won't be quite as much pressure on him. That said, I'm fading Kyler Murray no matter what. Like, I'm not betting on him in this game, but even at 212 passing yards as his line, he's gone under that in 3 of 5 games. He's averaging fewer than 200 yards per game. And Arizona runs the second fewest plays per game because they have a terrible 3rd down percentage. They can't stay on the field to keep drives going, which is a big reason why I think we're going to see them struggle to put up yards in general, even if they find themselves coming back the way they did against Green Bay last week. The rushing yards are low for him. 33.5 is a very, very beatable number for this guy on like 1 rush. We know that. But LAC, the Chargers are 11th in limiting QB rushing. They don't run very much man at all, so they've got plenty of eyes on the quarterback. Plus, they don't blitz very much at all or put too much pressure on the QB in general. So they're able to sit back and wait for him, keep all their eyes on him. And I think that'll be the case in this one. I also got to lean under for James Conner rushing. I don't think there's going to be many rushing yards for the Cardinals because by the time that they actually are able to put a drive together, I think they're going to be down a few scores, right? You look at James Conner, it's really dependent a lot of times on who they're playing and the game script for him. And I don't see either of those things in his favor here. Half the time he's gone over, half under. The unders are all versus good rush defenses. The Bills, not a good rush defense, I will say that. But the other two that he played against, Green Bay and Detroit, really good rush defenses, both in the top 8, limiting rushing yards and rush EPA. You look at the Chargers, number 1 in rush EPA. We mentioned Arizona, meanwhile, 19th. So both lines are good. Offensive line for the Cardinals, good. Defensive line for the Chargers, very good. But what I care about is the team defense being so good at limiting the run that I don't think Connor's going to have much success, and I don't think he's going to have very many opportunities because they're going to need to throw to come back after they're down a couple scores, let's say by the end of by the first half or so, and definitely into the 3rd quarter. Only player I'd probably be looking at for an over is Trey McBride, one of the best tight ends in the league. And this is where the Chargers are the most vulnerable. They allow the 2nd most receptions to tight ends, the 7th most yards to the position. Now, Trey McBride was coming back from injury for a while this season, seems to be good to go after a really nice game last week against the Packers. Only dude who really showed up for them. That's why I'm also scared to take Marvin Harrison Jr. I just don't trust that if the big play isn't there if that's covered, then he's not going to be able to be as effective. He and Kyler are both sort of explosive plays guys, and that's kind of been working against them when it's not there. Then the receptions and yards don't work for either of them. Trey McBride, however, sort of foolproof in that sense, and somebody that should continue to have success and will get a ton of looks from Kyler, anywhere from 9 to 11-ish in terms of the targets that you can expect for him in this one. One more reminder, Outlier.bet is the best tool around, the number 1 tool that I'm using to get all the research in one place for these NFL bets. Link in the description of the video if you do want a 7-day free trial. Test it out, see if you like it before purchasing. Other than that, Do want to remind you as well, jump in the comments, let me know who's the first touchdown scorer for both teams, and don't miss the Ravens and Bucks video. And until I see y'all next, happy betting.